All right. Hello, everybody. I am Daniel. I'm the founder of Startup CPG. And today we are getting to do one of my dream webinars. I have been asking Nielsen to do what I would want as a founder. I've done that journey. This is all of the stuff that I wish I had known as a brand starting on this journey. I'm so grateful to Nielsen for working with me, especially Monica. We worked on this together for months, and I was like, wait, what? Could we see this? She's like, yeah, we can see that. Okay, awesome. So Monica and I basically had a party over a couple of months, a little data party, and put together all of this stuff. This is basically Nielsen's gift to you, and it's a lot of my operational experience in here as well that people just have not seen before. And you guys know Startup CPG, we're all about basically just doing whatever we can do to help brands. And this is us saying, I love you with data and operational experience, all of it on here. I really think you guys are just going to absolutely love this. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so that you see this and all the other great content that we are doing here. So before we jump in, Monica, would you mind just doing a quick introduction?
Absolutely. And I love that data is your love language, is the feeling that I'm getting. But what I love about that is that you're really bringing it to life in a way that here's where the rubber meets the road, right? We can talk about data all day long, but you're making it practical and you're making it actionable. So I love that. My name is Monica Romero. I am with NIQ. I come from the brand side prior to that. So I kind of made the switch to the other side of the table here. But what I love about what I have gotten to do at NielsenIQ is, yes, we work with data all day long, but what I specialize in today is helping brands uncover opportunities for growth using the insights that we derive from the data, right? So we love taking the data from insights and then from insights to outcomes, which is the best part of the job. So appreciate you having me.
All right. So let's get right into it. And yeah, first, just so everyone knows, before we get into all the data, we partner with Nielsen because Nielsen really makes themselves and data really accessible to you. They really have done their best to democratize data. The stuff that you can get from them is amazing. This price point, honestly, would make people's heads spin in, most cases. Like, you can get these incredible report packages like Whole Foods data for under 5K. You can get 20 reports. Like, you could get the Whole Foods report for your category and a bunch of other stuff. So definitely reach out to them. They're very nice people. And if you want, you can scan that QR code. And I'm also just going to put the link here in the chat here in case you want to have a chat with them and they are your friends. So definitely take them up on that. Okay, so getting through the slides here. First, I think people know me pretty well here, but just a couple things I just want to highlight. So I have been on this journey, in addition to everything that I do with Startup CPG. Up until 2023, I was also the CEO for a beverage company, which I helped launch from scratch. So I have been on this journey of, breaking into CPG and especially running the sales route pretty hard. Also, before that, when I was at Just Egg, I was the head of analytics there for 5 years. So yeah, data is my love language. Really, I'm the one who was pulling the data and trying to tell the stories about the brand and running insight studies. So that's why I just love doing the content with NIQ so much, and why I really believe in them as just such a great partner for us. So, with Machu Picchu, for me, it was really the kind of approach that we had was we launched at Expo West one year, got really fortunate to get in with UNFI, get in with KeHE with their special honors opportunities, get into a couple of the early tastemakers, those accounts that can just take you and anchor you, Erewhon, Central Market, and then grew regionally with a heavy focus in LA, SoCal. Then we were getting into some of those nice regional chains like Fresh Time, Lucky Save Mart, Northwest Grocer, Sprouts, Innovation Set, like that can take you even before you have kind of full national coverage. We did great on e-com, and all of this in the first full year got into 3,000 doors. So, I think I have a good understanding of what it takes to kind of go from that 0 to 1. But for people who are new, I wish I'd understood this a little bit better just about regions. And, the first thing that I'm going to do now is just lean into some stereotypes. So please excuse it, but I think it's a really good way to explain the US market to people who maybe aren't so familiar. So you can see the different regions here and the growth of them. And if you're looking at the South, honestly, like, barbecue. Think of barbecue. What goes on at barbecues? You've got liquid beverages, you've got beer there, you've got frozen food, I think it is kind of a stereotype, but it's like hot there, all the stuff that goes with hot barbecue, South, like that's what you're going to see over index in the South. Good way to think about it. Obviously, working with Nielsen, you can cut it down much more specifically and get into states and all of that good stuff. And then in the West, I always think of like Kim Kardashian. We've got, healthy lifestyle wraps and tortilla shells and facial skincare and, like seltzers and cosmetics, that kind of stuff. Fresh fruit that really over indexes here. Feel free to disagree with me, but I'm just going to roll with this. Midwest, for me, a stereotype is like, good values people, like interested in good values. We've got your cheese heads, obviously dairy cheese, over indexes here for our friends from Wisconsin, frozen pizza. So just like good, Midwesterners, like good value people. They're out there looking for good stuff in kind of the traditional sense. And then in the Northeast for me, okay, I live in New York. We are go, go, go kind of people. We need our coffee and like easy on the go kind of stuff like yogurt. And yeah, like all the stuff that goes with coffee, you'll see on here also like cream and non-dairy creamers, bread, just easy to kind of go like, on the go kind of stuff here. So here's the overview for the channels in CPG, and you guys will get the slides, so you'll be able to have access to all of this later, but it should help you with modeling to understand by channel the number of stores. So you can see, especially grocery and mass are going to be what a lot of you guys will look at because some of those other channels are like dollar, not a lot for kind of better for you brands going on in there. Convenience, yes, but it takes a long time to get to the point where you'd be a substantial enough brand to really make a play for that. So you can see here, and has all the stuff that you'll need for modeling, like average spend. So you'll have access to that, and also it shows you kind of like how the frequency of purchase in each of those channels. And then when you're modeling from the beginning, also your price by channel, really important to understand the difference in like what your base price and your promo price is going to be and the frequency across these different channels. So, in convenience, for example, the margins are higher. They're going to have your base price way up. And there are going to be a lot of products being sold on deal. The depth of discount maybe isn't going to be as big in food. Basically, like the average discount for like 38% of products in the food channel are sold on deal. If you walk into a Safeway, try to find something that's not on sale, because actually I remember one year I looked at mayo category and it was like 80% of the volume was sold on Safeway on deal. They kind of price up and price down, like the stuff has a high base price and then is on sale all the time. And even the sale price isn't that good, but it makes because it's a lot cheaper than the base price, it really looks like a good deal. Consumers are not very well aware of this stuff. Like if you talk to an average consumer who goes to like a Safeway NorCal, they'll think it's a good price because they're getting stuff on sale and they don't realize that actually just the everyday price at a lot of other places is way cheaper. So good stuff for you to factor in given which channel you're going to target. Okay, here is the first money slide in here, which this is based off my experience. So I've built this map. These are all of the chains that I think are really important for early brands to think about. All the ones that I think, if we're like looking at a Jenga board, like the ones that I think are going to give if you talk to them, right? There are plenty that are inaccessible. These are the ones that might talk to you as an early brand. So I have the national ones over to the left, and that's across, natural, conventional, mass, obviously different levels here, but, convenience, gas, there are plenty that are old school that are never going to talk to you, but there are some that will. So we have all those here, and then also based on state, because you may have a specific region plan or you want to hit a certain state. And so we've tried to put the specific retailers, if they're not national, that we think are really present in those locations that you can talk to. So, in California, you can see there are plenty of regional and local chains that you can go after that will talk to you. And it's a build, right? You get one and then that gets the attention of the other. Some of them are like, just tell me when you're in my competition and then I'll talk to you. For some reason, that's the way it is. So, pretty good strategy to try to go after these a lot regionally. So definitely we'll be sending this out. This is one I think you'll want to screenshot and have as a good reference. These are the categories ranked top left to bottom right of what grew the most last year in penetration. So starting with fragrances, Monica, you explain this to me about the self-care revolution. Do you mind talking a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, and I really appreciate the just going through this exercise with you because it's something that we don't frequently do. Usually we're in the weeds with a specific category when we're doing analysis and answering specific questions. But this was a great opportunity to kind of take a step back and really understand high level what is really growing across the store. We could look at this from a point of sale perspective, but one thing that was really interesting to look at was from a penetration perspective. So as we think of new entrants to the category and how unlikely that is, right? So where do we see that growth coming from categories that are actually growing penetration, which is not the same. You can't say the same this for every category across the store, right? Some categories are struggling to even maintain the penetration they do have. But these are categories that are really attracting new consumers, new buyers into the space. And fragrances, the evolution of fragrances, if any of you has been in an Ulta, Sephora lately, or been on TikTok, you have seen some of these trends most likely pop up in your feed, because what's been happening in the fragrance space has been sort of a democratization, if you will, that's been going on for a couple of years. But even in the latest 52, right, we are seeing the popularity of products like body mists and body sprays. In many cases, these trends catch on because somebody realizes that these fragrances tend to be maybe a dupe, right? Dupe culture still continues to be a thing. And many body sprays and body mists are sort of in a way duping very expensive fragrances. So instead of launching it in a perfume form, they are launching it in a form of body care that can be layered on with different products, right? So we're seeing a prevalence of products that are really going to market with different features and benefits that go beyond just, does it make your skin softer? But is it a bath care product that also has a fragrance that feels very niche, that smells very niche, that smells like something you would be proud to wear, just in your day-to-day as you would a high-end fragrance. So this has made fragrances approachable to a new demographic, younger consumers, right? Or people who are just looking to kind of give themselves more of a self-care experience by just building in scents and fragrance into their shopping for other products. That was a whole fragrance tangent, and I could speak for hours about what's happening in fragrances. It's fascinating to me, but this has been really interesting to see across the healthcare and personal care space. I'm just going to touch on a few of the others, right? So I think a lot of what's driving many of these, but spirits, beer, and wine in particular, because not all of these categories have been growing, right? So within the spirits and wine world, we still see ready-to-drink cocktails, right? For a moment, it was hard seltzers that were really driving the growth in the category. That has started to sort of stabilize a bit. And now we are seeing still prepared cocktails in a can. Really is something that's really took off during the pandemic, but has sort of remained. And especially now, we've done all sorts of studies around Gen Zers entering the alcohol consumption world. These are the consumers that are driving penetration growth, because consumers that are entering the market for the first time, becoming of age, right? We see that impact across all the categories that are growing in penetration. Baking supplies is one that caught Daniel's eye and mine as well, because we know that everybody was baking at home in 2020, or many people were kind of picked this up as a new hobby. But people are still buying parchment papers and cheesecloth and other types of implements that you would use at home if you're doing kind of your own thing. So the sort of experimentation that began a few years ago apparently still continues to be a trend, and not surprisingly, I would expect that to be from younger consumers as well. And then the final one that I'm going to touch on from here is the health and performance space. And what's really driving this dynamic here is just the proliferation of nutritional and performance powders and shakes. So we see a lot of this happening across channels, but just people looking for supplemental nutrition on the go, or something to help them kind of boost their performance, pre or post workout and that sort of thing.
Which I think in my personal life is the one that I hear the most about now. Of just like everybody I know in LA before I moved was like, maybe I'll be a biohacker now. Like I'm going to start
Yes,
taking all these supplements and, checking things out, and like hydration everywhere. Also, all of that stuff
yes,
slotting into that category. So I thought that was a really
exactly.
really interesting one. And I love seeing sexual health on this top 10 roundup as well, just because I see a lot of really exciting brands. I'm trying to bring that into the conversation as well. So thank you, Monica. And that fragrances one is so interesting to me too, because it's not at the premium level you were explaining to me, right? It's
Yeah,
not like super premium brands that are driving that growth and penetration. It's like accessible stuff, right? Like body mists. So
exactly. There's sort of a high-low situation going on, which is super interesting.
I love it. Okay, cool. So moving on here. So here, yeah, maybe Monica, I'll let you chat about this one as well. But this is again, one of my favorite money slides from the NIQ team here. On the y-axis on the left, you have the 4-year CAGR, so 4-year annual growth rate compounded for all of these different sustainability and organic claims. So you can look and try and find yours and see how much it's actually grown over the last couple of years. And then on the x-axis, this is store expansion, the count of US categories. So like, what is the proliferation of these in all of the different categories that are in all of the different stores? And so, I think there are a lot of things that you can draw from here. First, it's just good to know how much your one is growing and what the opportunity might be. And then also, even if you just kind of look at the color of the bubbles, so you have like the purple one is environmental, you can see just kind of like how many of those there are that are growing now. Monica, any specific takeaways you think people should be looking at here?
Yeah, the thing I love about slides like this is we have a wealth of data and very granular data from our product insider solution that allows us to understand not just the most salient claims on pack, right, which you might find in your day-to-day database, for instance, but we are really able to drive deep down into all the claims that are placed on pack, that manufacturers are placing on pack, which is what you see reflected here. So these are all stated claims because that's the information that we would use to determine whether something is sustainably farmed, for example. We wouldn't necessarily derive that from the ingredient panel, but we can take a look at all the claims that are being placed on pack across different categories. And we really see how these claims are proliferating over time, right? So on the x-axis, you see just the number of categories across the store that are leveraging these types of claims in one form or another. And the growth rate is important to look at too, because many manufacturers are wondering, right, is this really a trend that we expect to continue, or is this a fad? Is this something that's really going to be relevant to consumers to the point that it's going to accelerate sales? Do consumers care that much to be willing even to pay a premium for these types of products? So using this type of analysis can really help you understand whether something is really going to stick around, right? And whether it's relevant enough to consumers to kind of put their money where their mouth is and say, we really care about sustainability, for example, or brands that are socially responsible. We really want to put our money behind those brands. Are consumers actually doing, what's the say-do ratio, right? Are they actually investing or spending more in those categories and those brands? So this is a great way to start to think about those considerations.
Yeah. All right. And one that caught my eye here was regenerative agriculture in the bottom left there, just because it's one that we're hearing a lot about, but you can see like the CAGR is not crazy. Even for something that small, it hasn't grown so much. And the penetration is not so big either. What does that tell me? Like, although our industry is talking about it a lot, you're not seeing it actually hit sales that much, which means it's still pretty early on for consumers to know about that. And I don't know, maybe it's an opportunity where it's just not in so many categories. Like I can tell you when I talked to the Jimbo's team on a recent podcast episode, they said we really wanted a regenerative canned drink and we couldn't find one. And then they ended up launching with Recoup, who's in our community here. They're like, finally, we found a great one and we're excited about it. So, definitely there are some opportunities there. Going to the
Yeah,
next one here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say I completely agree. The opportunity there might be too is if you have the opportunity to make a claim like that and you're not taking advantage of it, you're not placing it on the pack, right? This could be kind of a wake-up call to say, this is something that's relevant to my consumer and I'm not leveraging it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, next one here. This is on ingredients. And, I'll preface it by saying not every single ingredient is on here, but I think the NIQ team was doing a pretty good job of trying to find a lot of stuff that is top of mind. So same format here, where on the y-axis you have the 4-year CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. And then you have the same kind of penetration count of US categories on the x-axis here. So you can see a lot of stuff here, like pretty interesting to see the growth rate. And then you also have, for some of them, the TikTok hashtag count for things that are that's what's up on TikTok. And so, a couple interesting for me here, like I look at the electrolytes one, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Look how big that bubble is. There's so much going on in, hydration 2.0, I would say, just in so many different formats, and, powder and tablet and just trying to be super hydrated all the time now. And then, I see that like ashwagandha one kind of right in the middle there as well. And that makes sense. I mean, look at that. It's like a decent sized bubbles, and it also has almost a 40% CAGR, like not just, 1 year, but like a 4-year compounded annual growth rate. So that's pretty heavy, and it's getting into a lot of things. So I would just be looking for that, to absolutely explode. Any other insights here, Monica, you want to add
Yeah,
on?
I love that Stu is excited about snail slime. That's awesome.
Snail
Um,
slime.
and I love that these two slides are kind of side by side. So this is a nice continuation to the previous slide. The previous slide was focused, as I mentioned, on claims that are placed on pack, right? Things that are actually printed on the pack if you pick it up and read it. This is focused on another layer of our product insider data, which is we can actually drill down into ingredient statements and determine whether a product actually contains some of these ingredients, or whether a product actually qualifies as gluten-free, for example, or free from, or a whole host of other kind of qualifiers. So what's interesting to me to be able to overlay, for example, what's going on from a social media standpoint, and how much attention, how many hashtags these are getting, is I suspect there's a bit of a kind of a virtuous cycle going on. It's like, how much of it is consumers kind of driving the hype behind a certain ingredient, or driving more awareness of a certain ingredient and its functional benefits, which then can translate into manufacturers sees an opportunity to innovate along those benefits, right? How can we incorporate this into an innovation that also brings that benefit to consumers? So it's sort of interesting in the way that it's sort of social media is kind of not just an indicator, but potentially a driver of opportunities that are yet to come.
Right. And but so just to clarify for everyone, the bubble size here is their total sales in the last 52 weeks. So like electrolytes would be a really big one. And it's based off, what ingredients are in a package. And the I think those were the main questions that came in. And it's not everything out there in the world. It is a select list, I think, of things that they thought would be kind of top of mind and interesting for people. But impossible to do this slide with a full list of all possible ingredients out there in the ether, the infinite universe of SKUs. But okay. And again, we are going to email these slides out if you registered, so you will enjoy that. Speaking of TikTok, what's going on TikTok Shop? TikTok, what's happening? Was pretty interesting for me to see the top 10 categories that are, going on TikTok. I guess no surprise that health and beauty would be kind of at the top here. We know a lot of people do discovery and shoppable videos, I think, being really important for those categories. Higher price points, so brands invest a lot more in those categories. They can have good margins. Versus where if you look at grocery and gourmet food, that's at 179 million there. So I think a lot of potential there, but just because of the price points and all that stuff, and repurchase isn't going to be where health and beauty are yet. Hopefully someday we will get there. But good news for all the beauty brands out there. So some other slides I wanted to go through here. Interesting to see, I think people are seeing a little bit more standardization of planograms. So like unique item count going down a little bit since 2022. So a lot of competition out there, right? The private label one is one that's extremely interesting for me. So The share is growing. Retailers keep looking at it. I think it's becoming, more and more accessible for them to work with co-mans and kind of make their own versions of all the beautiful stuff that you guys all dream up, unfortunately. But it also can help grow the category. And I think it's really interesting to just double click on what is the private label share in different categories and why is that? So if you look all the way over to the left, 51% share for private label for milk products, whereas all the way over on the right in candy, it's 3%. Now, why is that? In my mind, I actually think maybe milk is even more complicated to make than candy. Like I used to work at Mars Chocolate, and in my opinion, those products are not hard to make. Like I know most food scientists, I think, would not have a problem replicating those kind of products. Probably a lot of you guys could also make those kind of products. They're not so complex. But so why is it so strong? It's for me the power of their branding and operations. Their brands are so strong. They invest so much marketing in them, and they are just absolute beasts on operations and just figuring out a way to make a single serve candy bar, deliver it, have it sold at Walmart for under $1, and they still probably have like a 70% margin on it. So they're figuring out how to do that in a way that really fends off a lot of that private label competition. Whereas milk, like, okay, yeah, a lot of retailers getting in the milk stuff. I think maybe because people don't care about the brands as much. If you look at even there aren't that many national brands in some of the categories like, eggs, for example, there are really only a couple that are truly national. So pretty interesting to see that. And as you guys think through your strategies here. So next one I want to go into is online growth. For me, this is actually one of the most interesting questions to think about what's going to happen in the future. Like you guys as shoppers, where are you going to be shopping in 5, 10 years? If you're going into a store now, will you always be? And if not, like where are your groceries actually going to come from? I'm interested if anybody in the chat wants to type like, where do you shop now? I'm interested in kind of getting the whole smattering. Me personally, I actually shop a lot at Amazon Fresh because the prices are very good. They're super competitive and it just comes to my house. And, I need to be here doing a lot of webinars. I don't necessarily want to like wait in line all the time. There's a lot of growth here, but where is it going to go? Is it going to go to like, first party click to collect, or they deliver, you order from Kroger, they bring it to you, or like third party sites, and like the Thrives of the world, all those guys, really interesting. But what's true is that online, basically the US CPG buyer spends 21% of dollars online and it's growing. And you can just see that in the chart here, like this, it's coming, and we're going to all have to figure out these strategies. And here it is actually broken out by the different departments as well. So it's actually not quite as much on food as it is on some of the categories yet, but you can see all of that info here should be pretty helpful for you guys. Next topic here. So we're going to talk a little bit about the better for shopper. So better for, because, for the way NIQ, I think, does a pretty good job of categorizing this, is like better for doesn't mean just one thing. It's sort of like conscious shoppers. And there are a lot of different products that would fit these, whether it's like from an environmental standpoint or a nutritional standpoint, or they're mission based. And probably a lot of the brands out there, you guys are, better on all three of these standpoints. But it's also, it's not just about one particular store where they shop or anything. In general, though, as you would expect, better for grows faster than conventional. I think, one good signal to look at the world out there is like, yeah, people do, in general, they are moving dollars a little bit towards that stuff and away from conventional, despite all the inflation and all that stuff that we're seeing. So, good signs, but obviously, just the scale is still a little bit distorted, but, signs of growth is always good. And I really love this slide that digs into there's not always a total intersection. In fact, there usually isn't, of people who buy better for across all the categories. So you can see there is some overlap of people who are, heavy better for buyers, like in supplements or in beauty, or overall, but like they don't always intersect. And so people might just go heavy, really prioritizing premium stuff in one category, but they don't care as much in another. Like I do. I think I know plenty of people who are like, gym freaks, and they're going to be getting the latest, like momentous, lovely, clean label kind of supplements. And then they might go and like, they don't care about buying an organic produce and, stuff like that. So, interesting to just know that there's complexities to the shoppers here. And for somebody, who's just kind of brand new to this and wants a way to think about the different generations here, because yeah, I mean they're very different, obviously. So just kind of a little cheat sheet that the NIQ team put together here to think about, like, okay, we've got Gen Z, we hear about them all the time. Not all of us understand them very well, like me, but what their formative events are very different. Like COVID is a formative event for them. It's one of the biggest one for all of us, obviously, but for them, like just really during their formational years, their character traits. Like I love seeing the social activism there and side hustle, go side hustles. I'm a big fan of side hustles. I think most of the Gen Zers that I know have a side hustle or are thinking up a side hustle or doing the side hustle while you're talking to them. And, really like digital native, a lot of them, really not even working age, versus Gen Y and millennials. And yeah, like the Great Recession and the coming of age of social media are, all things that really greatly impacted us. And what are their character traits? They're all, experiences and social causes. We're multitaskers, versus, Gen X and boomers. So I won't go through all of this, but just a nice little reference for you guys to have when you're thinking about some of these different demographics that are all probably really important to you. And what's true is that, Gen Zers do they are responsible for a lot of the like growth, like the dollar sales growth, but they're not the bulk. So if you look at this chart over on the left, you can see that as a percentage of total dollars, Gen Z is 6%, right? They're like not even so many of them that are out there buying the products. A lot of them aren't making the household decisions. Like it's 6%, but it is a lot of the growth versus the year ago. So a lot of them, like you got to pay attention, a lot of new of them, but you're still probably cool if you're just dominating with some of those bigger groups like Gen Y and millennials, who really are the ones spending the bulk of the dollars in the category. Did I miss anything, Monica?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. We've been seeing a lot of this in categories where we see that the picture, if we look at total sales and how the breakdown of total sales by generation, right? The picture looks very different if you're looking at the state today versus who's driving the growth. So yes, you may be sitting comfortably with your current demographic base. Just realize that very quickly you're going to need to pay attention to consumers that are just entering the market and how they're going to be shopping in the future.
All right. And just another reminder, I'm popping this in the chat right now. But if you ever want to talk about getting a lot of these slides customized for your category, your product, you can talk to the NIQ team. And I just popped the link in there. They'll give you some free reports. It's amazing. They'll talk to your team. So definitely reach out to them. But we got some more good stuff to go through here. Okay. So when we think about the, better for stuff and, what's actually going on, for sure, like, Gen Z, like people are buying stuff faster, than overall panel. But what's really interesting to me is the thing that I think resonates the most is like things like sustainability claims actually have a outsized impact on repurchase. And it makes sense to me when I think about some of the brands that I've discovered and then like learned that they're actually really socially responsible. And then I just get into it. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to buy them then forever. I'll just, a non CPG example for me, would be something like Patagonia, where you like might not know a lot about them and you buy it. And then someone's like, hey, that's a cool jacket. Do you know that like actually they will repair any item of clothing forever? Just send it to them and they'll like, whoa, that is cool. So brands like that where, and I think Liquid Death for a lot of people might be like that, where they like see, they don't know, and then they start learning a little bit about them and like, oh, that's their mission, like death, that's cool. Like, yeah, I'm kind of like, I can identify with that, and like that's kind of who I am too. I like that's cool. And so really can have a huge impact on repurchase. Okay, so we've been going through a lot of data, but this is a just kind of overall US CPG overview, and so I wanted to go through a little bit of experience, as well on just kind of go-to-market considerations. And a lot of this is based off my experience, so it's not going to be everything out there. A lot of you guys will have different experiences or things that you would want to add on. Feel free to drop that in the comments here. But it's intended to be a nice little primer for people in the early stages. So there we go. Okay, so just starting here, like there are a lot of different approaches to the market. There is actually no one path. And you kind of have to figure out yours, but in general, I kind of think about three different ways that have a lot to do with who you are, what your access to funding is, what your ambition is, like, your situation. But a lot of people will say like, hey, if you're bootstrapping, you don't have a lot of money, you're trying to make a go over this, like win in your own backyard, because that's where you are. You can really go for this by like try to sell to a local retailer in your area, then maybe get into a couple shops, like try to figure out how to open up a distributor that goes into them, maybe by asking them which distributors they work with. Then you get into that distributor, and then you ask that distributor where else they deliver to, and then you build up that way. And kind of like a nice way to start amassing nice sales, nice velocity, good data story. Later, then if you want to raise, you want to go into other regions, you're going to have a strong foundation there, but that will take years, right? Trying to do something like that. Now, also in your local area, you will have benefits like the Whole Foods local program, other retailers that favor local products. You're going to get beneficial terms and a better chance, and during that time, you can learn about your product, and you're going to change your packaging and messaging for sure. So you can kind of learn about it that way. But, obviously there are some downsides where like, yeah, it's local. You're not going to get that scale immediately that you need for it to be such a great growing business that you could probably take a nice salary off. Another one that a lot of people have gone for would be high end, where they're like, okay, I want to go fast. My product is better for you. I'm going to try to hit all those high end natural channel stores, and then maybe I'll go into like high end conventional. So I'm going to start with like, Erewhon and Bristol and some of those other ones. And then I'm going to try to hit the higher volume, higher store count ones, like Sprouts and Whole Foods. And then I'm going to be creeping into the high end conventional ones that are, like HEB, those kind of ones, which I think can be a really effective approach if as long as you have the money to spread yourself out that way. But you got to support the product in those stores, and it's not all in one region. So you can't just do like a cool sampling event in one location because you don't have so much product availability around there. So can be really good. And those high end stores typically have higher velocity. So that's good for your data story. And those consumers are high value consumers. So you'll see a lot of brands doing that. And then the last one here, go big or go home. Like you got a lot of money behind something, you need to go fast, which is the case for some people. Like it's a unique moment in time and you're just going to like, mega blast it everywhere. Okay, you can do it. That is an approach that some brands have gone after. It can be very hard to sustain velocity in the long run because you don't have unlimited money. But some people would say, no, we're going big. This is our moment. And, we got to do it. Okay. And I saw Janice made a comment in here also that like, another benefit to winning in your own backyard is your marketing dollars can go further. So absolutely is true, where you can like do more precise things that hit more people that way. So I kind of like that. I'm a little biased also, but I would almost tell everybody, like for me, 2025 year of the side hustle, if you can like bootstrap this thing for as long as you can, because the VC money is really dried up in a lot of ways. And if you can have another job where you have money to pay for some of those things and pay for marketing and, try to like just hold on to that while you can before you enter that kind of VC cycle that will take a lot of your company away. Try to like at least get more for it when you give it away. Okay, so in terms of route to market here, we've got a couple different options. There are more options than this, but broadly speaking, you have your broadline distributors. So a lot of people will go this route where like, yeah, I'm going to go, my goal is to just open up with Unify and KE, and they are the most significant ones in this space that a lot of us are in, of kind of better for you, especially food and beverage. And they have incubator programs, which are cool, like the Unify Up Next program, new at KE. They let you, because the challenge is in a lot of instances, you can't get into open up distribution until you have a lot of door count. But some of these programs let you kind of like jailbreak it open, and then you can go hunting and try to get other accounts. But there are cons, like, yeah, because you got to maintain it. You have to have a certain, I think it's like, I forget the number. I think it's 7 cases a month that you have to sell to keep a DC open. So they're going to be looking at that. You can hear more about that on the podcast. We did one with the Unify Up Next program manager, Aaron May. Check that one out. There are going to be a lot of charges along the way too, right? So you got to build all this stuff into the P&L. Direct store delivery. If you're going local, you might just try to find a really nice local DSD that you could get in with. And, it's like you're going to pay the fees, right? They like typically should hopefully do a good job and merchandise your product well. But you're paying for that service, and they may not want to work with you, even though you want to work with them. So that is a challenge as well. And self-distribution is the other option. Like big brands obviously can do that, and it really pays for them to be vertically integrated. Small brands can do it too. But it, it's, it's a lot. It's a lot to start doing that yourself. Like now you're going to be in the business of managing just your own self as a distributor, your employees, like their routes, that stuff. So and a lot of customers aren't going to want to talk to you. You like try to talk to Whole Foods about you delivering yourself into like a lot of stores and be like, you're not important enough for this for us to pay attention to that. Like just use a distributor. So, a couple different options here for everyone to consider. And then just know the fees, right? These are not all of them, but they're a lot of the big ones. So like the kind of margins that a retailer is going to expect from like 15% to like more commonly 30 to 40% or more even. The slotting fees, like a case per store, please do not get ripped off by somebody asking for like 5 cases per store per SKU. You can negotiate that stuff. And if it's really 5, you're never going to make that back. So do try to negotiate these things. I like to even just like throw myself on the mercy of the buyer sometimes and be like, have mercy, please. We're a startup. What can we get away with? Can we throw it into marketing? So sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they're trying to, make their targets. Promo fees, ad fees, like those at least make sure an ad fee puts you in the ad, at least to make sure your promotion actually happens, but they can be expensive. And I don't honestly know who really reads ads anymore. Distributor markups, you got to build those into your price build. And then the promo periods, which you can negotiate. Like sometimes they'll just tell you it has to be 4 times per year with like one of the distributors, but you don't always have to actually do that. Broker fee, or you can try to go it yourself and we'll give you resources to do that. But if you're really trying to go fast, a lot of times brokers can, make you those connections. I hope you at least use one that really like works for you. Merchandising, some people pay for. In the early days, it is expensive, but it also can have a nice impact in an account that's really priority for you. And then all of these different marketing options and, demos and trade shows, and you got to get there. So all the scary stuff. Now, I want to highlight a couple, just to finish up here, a couple of resources that we have for everybody. So we build this stuff for you guys. Basically, like me having gone through this journey and just seeing all the questions on the Slack, anytime we see tons of questions coming in, we try to build a resource for you guys. So this retail sales tracker here, for example, this is every single account that we think that's out there that's on that map. We have gone through and actually done all the work for you. And so it goes much bigger than this, like more columns, more rows. It's every chain out there. And even it has the link to where to submit. It shows what distributor they work with. You can filter it by distributor and see all the accounts that work with that one in case you get into a specific distribution center of a distributor, whether they anchor, meaning if they can unlock the DC, or if you just need to build stored count to get there. And you can use it like a CRM. We've done the same with brokers. We have a distributor database, and you can see we do all the work to categorize it here. We have it for warehouses and 3PLs. We have a finance database. So all of that is on our website, startupcpg.com. If you click on founder resources under databases, it's beautiful. It's out there. It's all free. Don't even have to put your email address in. We just want all of you guys to use all of that. And I don't know, maybe give us a podcast review if you're feeling like giving back. So, okay, I think these are most of the slides that I actually wanted to get through. I know there have been a lot of questions in the chat that was a little hard to see, but if you guys have any specific questions now, I think we have a little time. Maybe if you wanted to, let me stop sharing here for the moment. If you want to send something in through the Q&A, maybe we could take a few minutes to answer those kind of questions because we probably missed a lot through the chat. And again, if we could just get another like slow clap here for the Nielsen team for all of this info, because they're our partners for so many years now, and most of what we do is not possible without them.
I appreciate you having us, Daniel, and I agree with Alex in the chat. This is amazing, and thank you.
Yes, right. Okay, cool. So just coming to questions. All right, I see one in the Q&A right now from Fritz. Are brands like Athletic Brewing low or non-alc captured in spirits, beer, and wine data? I think that slide, they would be, but it's not specific to, it's not like an ALK category. So this is on the penetration slide, and I'm just going back to look at how it was written there, but I believe it was like RTDs. So, spirits, beer, and wine. Would non-alc be categorized in spirits, beer, and wine?
Non-alcoholic spirits, yes.
But in a beer,
But
so
not,
non-alc beer would be in beer?
Correct.
If it's marketed as a beer, then it's in beer.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Great answer. Okay. Thank you, Fritz. Any other questions? If you guys want to send them in through the Q&A function, you click the Q&A bottom button and send in your question, and then we can see it. Okay. Does NIQ cover Sprouts and Fresh Time? I think the answer is no to those ones specifically. I know you guys did just do a big launch covering the fresh market.
Yeah, we can, so if you're looking at for account level point of sale data, talk to your NIQ rep to see what's available for you to license. From a panel standpoint, we do have a wealth of shopper resources that we can look at as well.
Well said, Monica. Well said. Okay, I just put the link again, by the way, if you guys want to talk to your NIQ rep in the chat here. Okay, next one here. Do any of your data products break down CPG foods by ethnicity, the ethnicity of the CPG food?
That's a great question. So you're going to love this answer. It depends. So as you might imagine, there are manual ways that you could do this, right? So if you have a database, we have an infinite number of ways that you can customize your database based on what you know about your products. But from a straight coding standpoint, what we use to code products is what the descriptions that manufacturers place on pack. And it depends on the category. So different values are coded for different categories. If you're looking at something like frozen entrees, for instance, there may be a way for you to kind of designate them by ethnicity, either by the way that the product is described in the package, or you could start to do like a segmentation by flavor type, right? So if you know that certain flavor profiles like tikka or an Indian flavor profile, you could group it that way, things like that. So there are ways that we can work around that. It would depend highly on the category and the level of detail that you want to get down into.
All
So it
right.
depends.
Yes. And just to remind, people have asked also about the recording. It'll be on our Startup CPG YouTube. I just put the link there. It's best if you just hit subscribe when you go there, and then you'll always see all the good stuff. Another question that came in is how often is the data updated or refreshed? I think most people, like if you set up a Bizer alert, you like, hey, I want to see this category data, then you'd be often getting like a monthly email about that kind of stuff. Like I know NIQ, typically most people would be looking at, I think, on a monthly basis. I know if you've like some big brand, if you want it like weekly, you can get it, but that's like some insane
Actually,
fee.
Daniel, can I jump in real fast? With
Yeah.
Bizer, you actually get weekly updates and you can get
Whoa.
free weekly alerts. So sent to your inbox every Tuesday when it becomes available. So you can just passively engage with data and get a pulse on the market every single week.
All right. Thank you, Colleen. Cool. And okay, now let's see. So I don't know the answer to this one. That's a tough question, but any sense for how 2025 is shaping up with the threat of tariffs on imported goods? Monica, do you have
I
any?
saw your questions too. That's really interesting to me. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I have a perspective on specific categories. I think obviously it depends on the product that you're considering. We do have forecasting solutions that we could talk about to kind of factor in multiple variables that could impact that. But yeah, I'm sure we would love to kind of have that conversation with you and understand more about what you'd like to explore.
And if anyone thinks they know, put it in the chat here because I'm
Yeah, would love
curious
to
too.
hear it.
I'm very curious. Okay. Here's a great one. How do we know which category our product fits into when it's an innovative solution? It could be blending a bunch of different existing categories. Like, which one should I be pulling? For me, it's about where is it going to be merchandised? Like that's because you're talking to the buyer and the buyer cares about that category and you're saying put it in this category. What is it going to do for my category? What do you think? Does that make sense, Monica?
Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be how is your buyer thinking about it, and how that's going to inform how your shopper, where your shopper see what the adjacencies that your shopper is considering the competitive set, right, or the consideration set
Yeah.
for the product.
And if you're not sure, you can ask a lot of buyers this. Buyers, often they don't mind being asked a question. They can easily give you an answer to, like, hey, where would this thing go in your store? Like, oh, that would be in, fresh or what. Like they often don't mind just giving you the answer to that.
Can I jump in? Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, please.
something else to add. with Pfizer, since it's meant for emerging brands, we're often able to categorize and capture these more emergent and new trending categories faster than our historical hierarchy because we monitor for these emerging brands and what's new to the category. So we may have some better segmentation because that's really the purpose of Pfizer is to fit that need for the emerging brand and capture who's in their consideration set a little bit at a more smaller scale so that you're not looking at so much noise and making it more difficult to interpret how to use those insights.
All right. Maybe last question, because we're hitting the bottom of the hour here. So Alex had asked what categories are growing fastest through the D2C channel. I know you guys have a lot of e-com type data pieces out there. We didn't go into too much of it today. Do you mind giving people some clues?
Yeah, we do have the ability to look at, we would need to think about what D2C channels we're talking about. Specifically, if you're thinking TikTok or if you're thinking more like Amazon, we definitely have solutions that can drill down really deeply into like Amazon 1P versus 3P and all that good stuff. So if you're looking at pure plays, we can also look at the e-com version of any major retailer like a Target.com and see how things that are shaping up that way. But yeah, we do have an online solution, an e-com solution that can allow you to drill down into account level. And that is growing every day, right? So the granularity there is also evolving and increasing. So we would want to talk about what specific accounts you're thinking about from it.
Yeah, I think guys, reach out to the NIQ team if you want to chat about your specific category. You can get some free reports from them, and they are awesome, and they will really give you their best guidance on stuff that you can look at. And again, it's just this stuff is like just so much, the data is so much more democratized than it was like 5, 10, 15 years ago. It really is incredible. And it's so useful. I'm a huge believer in using data to tell your story. Just having some data in there in your presentation at least. And we have a really cool recording here also you can check out with the NIQ team that was on like pitch perfect slides. So like 10 slides you need for your presentation with an example from Jazzberry. Because if you don't have any data in there, then the buyer wonders, well, how well will this sell? And if you have the data, then they're like nodding their head along, like, yeah, this makes sense. Okay, what you're saying is logical. That data looks good. Like, that's what you want, not the like, I wonder, here's a gotcha question. So I really believe in it. And the NIQ team has just made the data so accessible. So I'm just going to, for the last time here, put the link in. So definitely feel free to reach out to them. And also make sure you join us at our incredible Expo West party that is sponsored by our friends at NIQ called the Alley Rally. We just, I think, put that out there today. So anyone who's going to be out at Expo West, definitely come and join and party with us and the NIQ team. And thank you again so much. If anyone on the NIQ team has a last word that they want to put in here, please feel free. But otherwise, I'm going to, I think, cut us off here. And thank you
to
again
the
to
audience.
everybody.
Great audience.
Yeah, great questions, everybody. Thank you so much for the engagement.